Yeah, I had some thoughts the other day about, and I've had conversations with people. Is porn something that desensitizes us? Is semen retention important for men and women? And what can we do to kind of, curb the detriments of porn, if there are detriments to porn? Because, everyone has their own, perception on that. Everyone has their own take on that. And before I get into, how it's desensitized me, or how it's, changed how I live my life, I kind of pass that over to you, that question in a sense, just so you could elaborate on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Regardless whether whoever watches it or not, you might not even have, it might not even have an impact on you.
Right.
Because there is a thing that most women don't really watch it probably as much as men. Mm-hmm. So like for you, you might not have it might not have an impact on you, but still I want to get your take. Like, do you think porn is detrimental to the human mind? And do you think, we shouldn't watch it?
Okay, so my theory in life is that nothing in moderation can kill you, right? Like, no amount of alcohol in moderation can kill you. No amount of drugs and alcohol can kill you. You feel me? Like, as long as it's in moderation, it can't kill you. You feel me? It's only when it's being abused, right? When you are having abnormal use, you feel me, abusing something, that I feel like it can then, alter things within you. So I want to piggyback off something you said. There is this stigma that women do not watch porn as much as men. That is totally not true. I got a sister. I won't say her name. She's a wild girl. I'm just playing, but
You only got so many sisters. I could just pick it a litter. Like, which sister?
Right. It's only like two of them, so
That's easy. Out of one of these two, one of them.
I'm just trying to. Hey, but I'm a part of a sorority, so I got a whole lot of other sisters.
People that just right.
Yeah, but nonetheless, so there are women who, you feel me, use porn and abuse porn, and you feel me, are addicted to porn just as much as there are men who are. Now, as for myself, for the record, I'm not. That's not really my vibe. I don't really know how Pornhub is in business. I wish I would have started Pornhub.
Sheesh.
You know what I'm saying? I wish I would have got that Pornhub bag.
Right.
But so I'm not really someone who's like into porn and stuff like that. But I do know that anything, you feel me, outside of moderation can have an effect on you, right?
Right.
Mentally, emotionally, maybe how you feel me, you view the act of sex. I believe that sex is a very sacred exchange of energy. I'm more on the spiritual realm. I'm never really on the surface too much with anything. So I believe, when you are exchanging, even visualizing, even seeing people, even on some voyeurism, like I'm trying to say, even watching the act, it's a very spiritual thing. You know what I'm trying to say? So I do believe you could become desensitized, you feel me, depending on how you are using or abusing it, right? Like if you just that's your thing, you in the mood with your piece, you like, hey, let's get it cracking, let's spice it up. You know what I'm trying to say? That's the vibes. But if you just like, it's Thursday, you know what I'm saying? It's Thursday. Let's see what the new videos have been uploaded. Like, then you may need to go talk to somebody. You know what I'm trying to say? You may need to go figure some stuff out. But yeah, so I'm interested in your perspective on it, right? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point, everything in moderation, because, I think that's true. Things in moderation can't kill you. And like you mentioned, if you are with like your significant other and you guys might, use it as a spice up, maybe it might be good for you and your significant other. Now, my perspective as far as it being desensitizing, I only can speak for myself. I definitely think as a younger person, partaking in it, being older now and not partaking in it, I would say definitely it had an impact on me for sure. It gave me these certain expectations that weren't happening in real life. Because at the end of the day, these are actors, at the end of the day, these are their professions, and we have no knock on people's professions and no knock on what people choose or how people choose to, get income.
Right.
But nonetheless, these are actors. It's kind of like watching movies or TV shows. You see these actors, a lot of things that are in the show isn't technically in real life.
Right.
Because it's acting, they're acting out a scene. And it definitely had an impact on me because if that's in my subconscious constantly, and then I'm in real life and this isn't happening, I can become so desensitized where I'm looking for that. I'm always looking for that high, one after another. And so I definitely think it for me specifically, it definitely put my dopamine levels out of whack because it's like a rush. And, and especially as a younger person getting a hold of that, as a teenager, which is crazy.
But you don't even know what you're really doing as a teenager anyway.
You know what I'm saying? But like as a teenager, I think it's even more, you know,
Detrimental.
harmful for someone at that age that hasn't even probably done it in real life.
Right.
You know, that's seeing it, you know, before. And so that's just my perspective and take on it, you know, and how it's had an impact on me. Now, another question I had was sperm retention.
Okay.
You know, because I was listening to this Chinese herbalist break down, you know, the days, the times people should, you know, ejaculate, whether it's women or men, but it was specifically for men. And it had this whole graph of if you're healthy, a healthy male at between the ages of 20 and 30, it's like once a day. If you're an unhealthy male between the ages of 20 and 30, it's like 4 times a week. And so what are your thoughts on sperm retention? Do you think it has an impact on good health? Do you think it's necessary? And do you think it's not necessary and people could do it as, you know, it's beneficial to do it?
Ski. I'm just playing. No, so I'm actually familiar with semen retention as well. I read the book, The Ways of a Superior Man. So all the men who gonna watch this know I'm not trying to get the cheat code on how to handle men, but I am a very divine feminine woman, so I know that I'm going to always attract a divine masculine man. So I read the book to understand the logic of a man, right? And in the book, I believe the author's name is David Dita or something like that.
So David, he wrote what again? Say the book again.
The Way of a Superior Man.
The Way of a Superior Man.
The Ways of a Superior Man.
The Ways of a Superior Man. I got to check that out.
Yeah, you should definitely check it out. It'll be a great
And it's by
movie.
David
Dita, I want to say Dita. I don't know. I don't remember his name.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah. I'll send it to you.
They can look it up.
Yeah.
Google got it.
Yeah. We live in the age of information.
Right.
Anyway, so in the book he mentions how semen retention is actually really good for men because your semen is your life force energy. So it's like when you are engaging in the sacred exchange of energy, which I refer to as sex, right? Like women, we are receivers, right? So like we'll receive the man's life force energy and we'll, you know, download whatever you have inside of you into us, right? Because we receive. And for women, we just take in, right? And for men, you give. So when you are not constantly giving out your life force energy, you are then building up your life force energy. You're giving yourself more energy. You're giving yourself more clarity. You're giving yourself more, like you're sustaining your life force, if that makes sense.
That's crazy. Do you think sustaining your life force more connects to life expectancy? Because I know they've always had this life expectancy chart that women tend to live longer than men. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Like I'm not really sure, so I don't want to say like yes or no.
Right.
I think that's a good observation. I think that it has some type of truth to it that resonates with me, you know. And I think also aside from life expectancy, I think it has a lot to do with like how you feel about yourself internally, right? You know, I'm so as within, so without. If you're retaining your energy for you, then you're allowing your energy, you feel me, to do what it needs to do for you, right? So I believe it has a lot to do with like how you're functioning as a man, your clarity, you know?
Right, clarity. I agree with that for sure. Because some things I was also reading about it is it helps. The less you do it, you become sharper. Your mental alertness becomes better.
Yes.
You can clear up your acne. Your immune system can strengthen, and it goes like for men and women that have practice retention. You know, their brain function improves, and just that going hand in hand with the porn thing, along with semen retention. Doing that one is desensitizing, and then also desensitizing the body in a sense. Like you're doing two things at once. And so that's what fascinated me the most about it, especially the life expectancy part about it. Like you are given this life force, you know, if you retain it more, can you increase your life expectancy and things like, or decrease your stress? But then you have some people that might argue like, you know, this helps with stress. So like,
it's like a drug though. It's a temporary fix. Then after you get your rocks, you feel me, off. Now you back trying to figure out how you're gonna pay your rent. So it's like it's a temporary fix. You feel me? Up until you feel me, you really handle the internal issues. You feel me? I'm all about as within, so without. And your life is truly a reflection. Your stress is a reflection of whatever you feeling internally. So maybe you gotta retain some of that life force energy so you can get grounded or something. Maybe you need some energy inside so that your inside is a little bit more, you feel me, relaxed and calmed and cool, so your external can be a reflection of that.
Right. And no one's ever saying like to those out there that might be like, well, what do you mean? This is my my getaway. This is my way of de-stressing. What do you mean? I can't.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not saying, you feel me, don't get out here and do what you do, but you feel me. I just believe that the part of the purpose of our human being experience is to continue to learn and grow and evolve, and the best way to evolve is to apply new things that you learn. So maybe this is some new information to somebody where they're like, "What? I never heard that." Don't just take my word for it or David Dita's word for it. Do your own research and give it a go. Try it out. Maybe not. Yeah. I'm even a man. I don't know this. I don't even know.
Right. And that's a good point you make about new information. Because when I heard about it, sperm retention, I was just like, wow, this is really interesting. And then an actual younger person than me brought it to my attention. And I was like, dang, there's 19, 20-year-olds that are practicing sperm retention. What am I doing? what am I doing?
You out here playing ball.
When I was 19, I didn't even think of things like that, like sperm retention. I didn't think of things like I need to actually protect my life force within me to strengthen myself, because technically, these are unformed people that you just
little spirits
letting loose, like spirits.
Little spirits.
For real. So it definitely has a sacred, nature to it.
Right.
How do you feel like as a society we came to this whole porn is like a thing, porn is okay, masturbation every day. How do we come to that as a society?
I think in the 70s, I got an affinity for the 70s. So I think with the free love movement, everybody was like, this feels good. This feels great. We should do this more often. And if you want to do it yourself, do it yourself. Right. Love yourself. Free love. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know, because I'll be worried about stuff like that. Like, it's just certain songs where I'll be like, oh, I know they did not get that cleared to be put on the record, on the like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I don't know, because I'm starting to wonder, when do we get here? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I think I mentioned this in the conversation to you before or something. I'm not sure, but I'll say it again. I remember being a little girl and sex was still this mystery to me, right? Like, I knew it was something. I knew when it came on the screen, I had to cover my eyes and peek through. These kids don't do that. There's no mysterious element to sex to this new generation. They have everything at their fingertips, with these phones and these apps and these devices. But there is no mystery to sex. That's a good question. I wonder, when did we get here to where everything could be sexualized? And I can only speak for myself as a mother. I breastfed for 3.5 years, and I was free to titty. Oh, well, if you don't want to see my baby get fed, don't look. You know what I'm saying? But people really had a problem with me just popping my boob out and feeding my baby. They'd be like, cover up. And I'd be like, do you put a blanket on your head when you eat?
Right.
You know what I'm trying to say? If you don't want to see my boob, don't look. And my argument will always be, we use titties to sell hamburgers, hot cars, and hot dogs, but I can't feed my baby in public. You know what I'm trying to say? If I was selling a beer and wings with my boobs up and perked up, and now everybody be like, ooh. But because I'm nursing my child, the most godly, you know what I'm trying to say? This is how God intended for a baby to eat anyway. Right. I got to cover up. I got to make you feel more comfortable when all you got to do is turn your gaze and not even pay attention to me.
Right. And that goes back to the hyper-sexualization of
Exactly.
porn, because it's you're right, your breasts are for feeding a child, right? And, as a person, as a human in this experience, obviously we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. You have your go-rounds of booty breasts, but at the same time, when you put it in that context, you're right. Why can't you feed your baby in public? Obviously, if you cover whatever, but this is normal. And people are so hyper-sexualized, at least in America.
Right.
Because when you travel, they don't allow, obscene, photographs on billboards. They don't allow it. And we call it ultra-conservatism. That's our take on it. We call it, oh, yeah, they don't let you do what you want. You don't have no rights in these places. They're ultra-conservative. But, when you have little kids, nieces, little cousins, is that a bad thing that they have certain conservatisms?
I don't think so at all. In my last days on the Hollywood Boulevard, Meek Mill had his album painted on a bus. And let me tell you, it was a chick bent over, and you could see the pink lips on a black little lady. And I was like, oh my God, there's kids on the boulevard. What they doing?
Right.
I was just so disgusted. These kids don't have nothing left to the imagination.
That's true, which that should be something, I suppose, that's mysterious.
Right.
Something that you learn.
Until you are, mentally mature enough, old enough, you know what I'm trying to say, to comprehend the act of sex or,
Right.
Sexual expression and so on and so forth. Now, I do believe you could break things down in childlike terms to children, but an image like that, like, come on.
Right. And it kind of, and I know this is a little different, but it also kind of contributes to the we can call it the destruction of the subconscious.
Okay, I like that.
As far as, when you're a little kid looking at playing Call of Duty.
Okay.
And seeing people die and things like that. You seen people die, you watching porn, and like you said, before you mentally formed, like, man, you could be 20 years old and you already had those illusions of like, oh yeah, like the girl in my apartment building, I'm going to knock on her door and, playing out these scenes in your mind that don't happen.
Right.
Right. But this also brings me to a point because you know how women been saying like when Amber Rose had the slut walk, and people were and you correct me if I'm wrong, the promotion of the slut walk was mainly about like, we should be able to dress how we want to dress and men should be able to control themselves. So when women make that comment that men should be able to control themselves, but also watch porn, or don't say, well, maybe we should, limit the porn exposure. What do you say to that? Because that's an interesting, back and forth. Like, that's interesting. Like, on one hand, yes, men should be able to control themselves and women should be able to, do what they want to do. But then on the same token, maybe the men have been, most men from a young age, growing up, in the nation, like myself, have been exposed to these things early on and might just unfortunately have these things in their minds where they can't control themselves,
Well, don't fight me because I know how you girls like to tussle. What they be saying on TikTok, don't fight me because I know you girls like to tussle. But I don't agree with the slut walk. So I'm not even do you dress how you want to dress, show what you want to show. But I also understand you can't argue with the laws of nature. Men are very physical and visual. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I could be on the phone with my homeboy and he like, oh, that old lady got a fat ass booty. I'll be like, bro, this is somebody's grandma.
Right.
He like, she should not have that booty. I'm like, bro, she look good. I'm like, bro, y'all just different. Men are wired different. You guys are naturally like, I'm gonna punish. You see something, you want to punish it, you want to experience it, and it don't have to necessarily mean anything to you. That's the nature of a man. It's a very just machismo, bravado, just programming. And like I see the difference between having a daughter and a son. A lot of stuff that my son is doing, I'm like, man, get your little butt down. My daughter never did stuff like that to this day. So men and women are just programmed different. In a perfect world, should women be able to walk around freely? Yeah, they do it all the time in the motherland, boobs out, everything out. And men are able to control themselves. But that's the culture there, right? The culture here is totally different. And that's the reality, right? Like, like you said, we've been desensitized. There is nothing left to the imagination. And it's like, men are just physical and visual. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, and y'all can't even help it. I know, like, I've been on the phone with men and like, I'm hanging out with you. And I'm like, you guys are weird. That's nasty. I don't think like that. You really just see a girl and just automatically want to punish it? Like, what does she do? That's nasty.
Right.
You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
and I wouldn't say every single man, because like you said, we're living in American culture. It's 320 million Americans in the world. Or should I say in America?
In the world.
And then there's like 1.1 billion Africans, there's 1.2 billion Indians, and there's like 1.3 billion Chinese. So we're like a minority of the whole entire world. We're not even the majority of the world. But speaking as an American, in America, definitely I would say we might have differences in culture, in terms of how we perceive things. We definitely have a lot of cleansing to do, a lot of renewal, revival, because I don't think all men are like that, where they just, you got men with daughters that aren't like that the daughter changed them, that they don't just look at every woman like that because they have a daughter.
I think, I'm going to be honest with you, I think he may be able to control it a little bit. He got that self-control, but that is innate. I'm telling you, even married men, even when you've been with a man for so long, his eyes are always going to gaze at something different because men just like different. Like, and that's not a bad thing, right? Like, even if you are having those thoughts, like you should be able to see it, have the thoughts, and have the tact, the humanity, and the character to be like, I can't approach her like that. Right. That ain't right.
Right.
You nothing wrong with having the thoughts.
Right.
Just control yourself.
Yeah, control yourself. And going back to the hypersexualization, and this connects me to the whole entire thing about men with wives, in a sense, right? Because of our hypersexualization, in America, like if a Mormon has 3 to 4 wives, the first thing the normal American thinks about is probably sex. But you have these cultures in Africa, the Middle East, China, that they might look at it as procreation, wives, subdue the earth with your seed, multiplication, because our sole purpose is to multiply ourselves,
right,
to keep our species going, right? So would you say that hypersexualization has unfortunately changed the perception of, what's innately in a man? Because like you mentioned, it's innate in a man. He just looks at women. Some men might look at a woman like, oh yeah, she's a good person. She might be another good wife. And some men might look at it like, oh, this is just another piece, right? So like, if that's innately in a man, do you think the over hypersexualization changed the idea of, wives, procreation, etc.?
I think maybe it skewed the perception on it, right? Because when I think of multiple wives and polygamy and so on and so forth, I naturally go to like, oh, he just trying to hump all 3 of them. He just want to be able to do what he want to do and not get in trouble. And they dumb enough to go along with it. That's what I think. But I've actually been educated on like polygamy and its purpose, and the point of it is to, like you said, grow the family, to have someone around the house to do the things that maybe one wife is not really naturally good at. So maybe one wife cooks and one wife clean and one wife deal with the children, and they all build wealth together and so on and so forth, which I still think that's an excuse, because if you love me, baby, we're going to need a maid. We're going to need a nanny. We can figure it out between the 2 of us. We don't need an extra nobody up in here, okay? For the records.
Right.
I'm just playing. But yeah, so I think that maybe it skewed the perception, right? Because that's naturally what I think about, like, oh, he just trying to hump. I'm trying to say multiple women and have his cake and eat it too. But I'm also aware of the other, you feel me, aspect of polygamy, right? It's not all about sex. But I think that goes back to just the state of like what we feel about relationships in general and in society and culture, right? Like everything has been so sexualized that we are like,
right.
You feel me? Relationships.
Like we can't even, we can't even look at the basics.
Yeah.
Because it takes me back to Abraham. You know Abraham.
In the Bible?
Yeah, Abraham.
I don't.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The man Abraham, our ancestor.
Let me know.
Like you said in the Bible, so you know Abraham.
I mean, but I need a refresher.
Okay, Abraham.
Okay.
So his wife, Sarai, which in Arabic they call him Ibrahim, right? That was his actual name because he lived near Africa in the Middle East. He was not English, so his name's not Abraham. But Ibrahim had Sarai, and Sarai, which they call Sarah, couldn't get pregnant. So Sarai was Egyptian, and Hajar, which in English we call her Hagar, she was an Egyptian handmaiden. So she was like kind of like the help. But Sarah couldn't get pregnant at the time. So Sarah said, you could have another wife for babies. So Ibrahim's firstborn was Ishmael. Ishmael, was born by Hajar and Ibrahim, Then later on, Sarah was actually able to get pregnant. But just that story alone, the innocence of that, the mindset they had at the time, like it's important to procreate. It's important to pass the seed down. It's not about, I'm pretty sure it could have been hard for Sarai.
Right, because this is something like Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. Oh my God, I'm just playing.
But you see how the innocence of it is just like prior to the hypersexualization, porn, all of these different, things being thrown at humanity. It was more so just like, procreation.
Let's make more people.
And then she was finally able to get her body together and have a baby, which was Isaac.
Ooh, and maybe that was like a test, you feel me, from the Most High. Are you willing to be selfless, you feel me, and allow your husband to procreate with another woman? That'll determine if you could even have a child, because all that, you feel me, I believe in stuff like that. So
it's just deep. It's just deep. Yeah. It's just deep how when I read that story, and for people out there that want to know, you can find this story in Genesis and Deuteronomy, which is in the Bible. I look at the Bible as a history book. It's full of history, and I look at the Quran as a history book as well. In the Quran, you can find the story in Al-Baqarah, and Al-Baqarah basically, breaks down genealogy, just like Genesis. Genesis breaks down the genealogy of, Abraham's seeds, who Abraham's father was, so forth, so on. And it gives you insight and stories, kind of like that will left on. Like, hey, look, this will, obviously modern day wills be just like, hey, you can have this couch, you got this table.
Yeah.
But their wills were more so like, look, I'm going to give you a little diary of my life.
Right.
And this is kind of how I lived. And I'm going to pass this down to you, hoping you keep this word passed down to your seeds to keep this tradition going.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, it's, and back to modern day, hypersexualization, porn, it's definitely a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have some people like, well, I'm enjoying my life. It's my life.
Okay, you only live YOLO. You only live once.
You know what I mean? And that's good for an individual. And that goes about everything in American society as far as your individuality is your individuality. However, I think on the other side where you have people, your religious scholars, your believers in the Most High, things like that. I think on that other side, right, you have people like, well, why does it have to be marketed? Like, why do everyone have to see this? Why does it have to be for our, why has it got to be so accessible? Right? Because, we're so caught up on, and this is just a comparison, we're so caught up on, banning gun rights, right?
Right.
Which I'm pretty sure, there's more people walking around figuring out how to hump a girl versus how to shoot a girl or shoot someone. But we focus so much on...
That low-key may be like 50-50. I don't know.
A little bit of both, huh?
The ways of the world today is a little bit scurry. Very, very scurry.
Right.
Never know. But I feel you with that, though. I'm reading with you right now.
Yeah, it's both sides. And I
Yeah.
try my best to stay objective, stay in the middle.
Yeah.
Not go too far right, too far left. Just stay in the middle of everything. And just being in the middle, I can see both sides.
Yeah. And then I also want to say, like, it's also about, like, where you are on your journey. Like, there are some people who, like, or I guess I can only speak for women, right? Like, who, like, I need a whole phase, or, like, I need to go and explore my options, or blah, 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 blah. Like, they need a season of that. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that, but, right on.
Right.
Right on.
Right. Like, I'm single, I could do it,
Yeah,
type
I'm trying to
stuff.
say it's all about personal preference at the end of the day, too. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I've always been somebody like, nope, can't share myself with just anybody. Like, just that's me innately. Like, stuff, stay over there. I don't know you. But there's some people who like, shit, free love, spread the love. You know what I'm trying to say? And it's no shade to them. So I think ultimately it really just boils down to a preference. You know what I'm trying to say? Maybe some people they watch porn and they don't feel like they being desensitized. Maybe they feel like they learning. They like, that's a history class or a sex education class. They looking at it from a different lens. Who knows? But
Right. So yeah, it's quite it's always a lot to digest in
Yes.
these conversations because it's like, you're going against a construct, so I think for the most, what's best might not be best for the other person. And so it's just important to, I guess, seek out that individuality and, what floats your boat,
yeah.
So in conclusion, what's your rich reality today, Qierra?
Oh man, my rich reality is when you look good, you feel good, and hold yourself accountable to be better. You feel me? I actually spent time today and made myself up. I don't even be wearing makeup. So I spent time and gave myself enough time to make myself up, to make myself feel good, and holding myself accountable, right? The best finger to point is always at yourself, right? If your life is going good, it's because of you. And if your life is going to shit, it's because of you too. And yeah, that's my rich reality shit, holding myself accountable because, baby, my life is on